Hello again, I'm Nadia Nazir and you're watching tvsarawak.com. Here's our headline. The bilateral trade between Malaysia and China is expected to expand. The bilateral trade between Malaysia and China is expected to grow, given the steady expansion over the last decade at an average of 18.2% since 2000. Chief Minister Datuk Patinggi Tan Sri Adenan Satem pointed this out and added that Malaysia's bilateral trade with China recorded 106 billion US dollars, and China is the largest trading nation with Malaysia over the past 5 consecutive years. Tan Sri Adenan was attending a reception to mark the 65th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China at a hotel. The occasion also celebrated the 40th anniversary of diplomatic relations between China and Malaysia and the 20th anniversary of the Consulate General of China. Chief Minister also highlighted the fact that a lot of Chinese businessmen had come to invest in the state, while the mainland Chinese had been of great help in tapping the state's natural resources, notably the construction of hydroelectric dams, when the Western used to shy away and put up a lot of restrictions. He said that China was still an isolated country, shunned by many in 1972, and Malaysia was the first ASEAN country to recognize the Republic when Malaysia's then Prime Minister, the late Tun Abdul Razak, visited China in 1974. Here he said the Chinese Consul General Liu Xuan should feel at home, given that the Chinese community had become an important part of the overall racial and cultural makeup of the state, while the city has Carpenter Street, which is widely known as either China Street or Little China. Tan Sri Adenan also extended congratulations to the mainland Chinese for being able to catch up with the superpowers such as the United States. Chief Minister promised Sarawak would continue to look to China in terms of economic advancement and that the state government would continue to assist the Consulate General here in enhancing bilateral relations between China and Malaysia, in particular Sarawak. Chief Minister promised Sarawak would continue to look to China in terms of economic advancement and that the state government would continue to assist the Consulate General in enhancing bilateral relations between China and Malaysia, in particular Sarawak. China's Consul General in Kuching, Liu Xuan, pointed out that China is expected to import commodities worth 10 trillion US dollars and invest 500 billion US dollars from overseas in the next 5 years. Thus, he hopes that the business community in Sarawak and Sabah will grab these opportunities to further boost the bilateral trade between both countries. He added that the Chinese Consulate General in Kuching is more than willing to offer assistance and services. Liu said the relationship between China and Malaysia had brought about fruitful and concrete results over the last 40 years. In 2013 alone, the trade volume was beyond 100 billion US dollars, while the flow of people between both countries registered more than 3 million. He mentioned the fact that Malaysia is China's #1 trade partner among ASEAN countries, #3 in Asia, and #6 worldwide in terms of country-to-country trade. He added that China is working very hard towards realizing China Dream, which simply put is to turn China into a prosperous, democratic, culturally advanced and harmonious country by 2049. Liu was pleased to note that the local community had organized more than 10 major functions to mark the 40 years of diplomatic relations between China and Malaysia. The community carrier of Malaysia Airlines, MASWings, will suspend its 4-time weekly services between Kuching and Bandar Sri Begawan in Brunei via Mulu, effective October 26 this year. In a press statement yesterday, the commuter airline said the decision was part of its network rationalisation, focused on expanding its domestic routes, which remained its core market. Chief Executive Officer Captain Rizwan Rashid said MASWings continuously Chief Executive Officer Captain Rizwan Rashid said MASWings continuously reviews its network strategy to meet market needs and thus opts to invest its resources where the demand is. With regard to the suspension of the Kuching Bandar Sri Begawan route, MASWings would notify all affected guests by emails, SMS alerts and calls. The re-examination for two papers of the Ujian Pencapaian Sekolah Rendah UPSR, which had been leaked, namely Science and the English Language, began today. The papers which were repeated were Science 018, 028 and 038, beginning at 8:15 a.m. and the English Language 014/1, which were rescheduled for 10:30 a.m. and English Language 014/2 at 12:20 p.m. The new date for Mathematics 015/1, 025/1, 035/1 and the Tamil Language 036 and 037 had been fixed for October 9th. The re-examinations were being held following leaks in the earlier UPSR examination papers involving 472,853 pupils who had to resit the examination nationwide beginning September 9th. Yesterday, Datuk Seri Najib Tun Razak conveyed his good wishes to the pupils involved in the UPSR. The Prime Minister also praised the patience of parents and teachers in facing the leakage in the examination papers. The syndicate that preyed on bank auto teller machines the last 2 days used a computer virus known as ulssm.exe to steal money from them. Federal Police Commercial Crimes Investigation Department Director Datuk Murtaza Nazreen said the virus would issue instructions to make withdrawals on the amount still left in the ATM being hacked. He explained that the suspects were found to have opened the top panel of the machine without using a key and inserted a compact disc into the machine's processing center, which caused the ATM system to reboot, and they then used a keyboard to hack into the system and take out money. According to him, information obtained from the systems engineer of a bank indicated that up to 40 notes could be taken out in a single transaction using this method. In related development, Petaling Jaya Police Chief ACP Azmi Abu Qasim said 5 police reports had been lodged on such hacking of ATMs around Petaling Jaya. The ATMs were located at Jalan Yong Shuk Lin, Petaling Jaya, Affin Bank with losses of RM303,000, Dataran Sunway Al Raji Bank with losses of RM285,700, Section 14 Petaling Jaya, Bank Islam, losses of RM395,850, Kota Damansara Bank Islam, RM221,160 and Kelana Jaya Al Raji Bank, where the full amount lost has yet to be ascertained. Another Al Raji Bank branch in Section 9 Shah Alam lost RM116,000 to similar hacking. Azizman said the modus operandi was the same as the ATMs preyed on in Johor, Malacca and Selangor yesterday. Yesterday, the media had reported that a total of RM530,600 was stolen from ATMs of Affin Bank branches in Johor and Selangor after the machines were hacked, believed to be by using telephone SIM cards and sophisticated telephony technology. Meanwhile, Affin Bank Berhad and Affin Islamic Bank Berhad assured customers that there has been no breach or compromise of their accounts following the recent incident of stolen cash from 6 automated teller machines. The bank said pending the outcome of police investigation, they have put in place additional control measures at all ATMs at branches and off-site locations. 42 Malaysian construction companies generated total sales of RM102.96 million from 97 pre-arranged meetings at the recent incoming buying mission on September 17, 2014. The mission was co-organised by the Malaysia External Trade Development Corp, MarTrade, and Construction Industry Development Board in conjunction with the International Construction Week 2014. The pre-arranged business meetings involved international buyers from Japan, the UK, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, India and Hong Kong. Services sourced during the event included consultancy and project management, planning for commercial and housing development, and construction of road, it said. The International Construction Week was one of the biggest events in the construction industry. Moving on to the global front. Boeing and Air China celebrated the delivery of the airline's first 747-8 Intercontinental. Air China is the first carrier in Asia to operate the passenger version of the new fuel-efficient 747-8. The new airplane is the first of 7 747-8 Intercontinentals Air China has on order. Song Ji-yong, president of Air China, said that this iconic airplane has played an important role in Air China's international development and has also witnessed many milestones of the reform and opening up of China. Air China, the flag carrier of the People's Republic of China, will operate the new airplanes as it continues to expand its international routes. The 747-8 Intercontinental will bring double-digit improvements in fuel consumption and emissions over its predecessor. The 747-8 Intercontinental will bring double-digit improvements in fuel consumption and emissions over its predecessor, the 747-400, while generating 30% less noise. The airplane's interior, inspired by the 787 Dreamliner, includes a new curved, upswept architecture, giving passengers a greater feeling of space and comfort while adding more room for personal belongings. The 747-8 Intercontinental is powered by GE Aviation's Gen X-2B engines. Boeing's partnership with Air China dates back to the 1970s. In addition to the 747-8 Intercontinental, Air China also has 15 787-9s on order. Air China has received all of its 20 777-300ERs in the last 3 years and is one of the largest 737 operators in China. Nearly 300,000 people have been displaced in Ukraine, with over 5 million living in conflict-affected areas, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said. Spokesman Stefan Dujarric said humanitarian needs in areas under the control of armed groups are significant, with local organizations and Red Cross teams having nearly exhausted their supplies. Dujarric said some areas in the east have limited or no access to drinking water, and diesel generators are needed to power water pumps and treatment units. The Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights will release a report on Ukraine in Geneva, Switzerland this Friday on the situation in Ukraine for the August 18th to September 16th period. Military clashes between Ukrainian government troops and independence-seeking militia, which started in March in the eastern parts of the country, have claimed at least 2,600 lives and displaced some 260,000 people. Eastern towns such as Donetsk and Luhansk are among the worst affected areas, with almost 94% of civilians displaced. Vietnam won 3 awards from the International Atomic Energy Agency (IAEA) for its achievements in releasing mutant plant varieties and contributions to increased food security and sustainable development. The awards were announced at the recent 58th regular session of the IAEA General Conference in Vienna, Austria, Vietnam News Agency reports. Vietnam Agricultural Genetics Institute picked up an Outstanding Achievement Award for its joint work with IAEA and domestic research institutions to create a number of flood-proof and high-yield rice varieties since the 80s. Southern Vietnam's Institute of Agricultural Science and the Center for Nuclear Techniques in Ho Chi Minh City were presented with an Achievement Award for mutation breeding. 2 individuals from Soc Trang Department of Science and Technology, Ho Kong Kwa and Tran Tan Phuong, received the same accolade. The one-off awards were to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Joint Food and Agriculture Organization (FAO) IAEA Division of Nuclear Techniques in Food and Agriculture. Pro-democracy protesters have again urged Hong Kong's leader to step down, saying he will be condemned by history as huge crowds continue to bring parts of the territory to a standstill. The protesters want Beijing to give Hong Kong a free vote for its next leader, something Beijing has rejected. By Tuesday, streets were relatively quiet, but crowds are expected to swell for the eve of Chinese National Day. Over the weekend, police used tear gas and pepper spray, but riot police have since been withdrawn and protesters remain calm. China has described the demonstration as illegal and urged the Hong Kong government to bring them under control. News of the protests is being heavily censored in mainland China. The protesters are a mix of student protesters and supporters of the pro-democracy Occupy Central Group, which has been promising a sit-in at Hong Kong's financial hub for months. In the US, a White House spokesman urged Hong Kong authorities to exercise restraint and protesters to express their views peacefully. Armed with new three-dimensional maps of the southern Indian Ocean floor, search vessels will focus on a 350 nautical mile-long stretch of seabed for the Malaysia Airlines jet that vanished in March without a trace. Two ships will deploy sonar and submersibles 16,000 feet deep to scan the priority section of the 7th arc, where the Boeing 777 with 239 people aboard may have run out of fuel and crashed. The location, several hundred miles off Western Australia, is based on the jet's final satellite communication, its performance and the projected descent. MH370 mysteriously changed course not long after taking off from Kuala Lumpur en route to Beijing. The Australian Transport Safety Bureau, which leads the international search, says available information confirms that MH370 will be found in close proximity to the Ark. The agency says the aircraft is unlikely to be more than 20 nautical miles to the west or 30 nautical miles to the east of the Ark. Nothing on the 3D maps released last week indicates the presence of an airliner or large parts of a jet on the ocean floor. The new topographical data will help the sophisticated equipment operate safely. The survey, conducted from May through late September by Chinese and Australian ships, has revealed several previously unknown features, including two volcanoes, a mile-deep trench, and a mountain ridge nearly 9 miles long, 4 miles wide, and rising more than a mile from the ocean floor. The total search area of the new phase is 17,500 square nautical miles, divided into priority, medium, and wide. Having completed the seafloor mapping, the Netherlands-owned Fugro Equator has returned to the search area and hopes to begin the latest hunt in the coming days. It will be joined by the Fugro Discovery and the Go Phoenix, owned by Maryland-based Phoenix International. Rough weather is forecast through the rest of the week. Peter Foley, the Australian official coordinating the search, said he was cautiously optimistic that the jet would be found, but he acknowledged the difficulty ahead. And that wraps up the news for today. I'm Nadia Nazir for tvsarawak.com. Thank you for watching.